The Gilded Prophecy. The air in the sprawling megacity of Indus was a thick, humid brew of spices, ozone, and the sickly sweet scent of genetically modified marigolds. Neon script, a dizzying waterfall of data streams and corporate logos, cascaded down the chromoglass skyscrapers that pierced a perpetual, smog-choked twilight. At the heart of this gilded cage, in the highest spire of the Vishwakarma Tower, lived Anika. Her body, a marvel of bioengineering, was the pinnacle of a century's worth of corporate eugenics. Her skin, a flawless, translucent gold, shimmered faintly with the bioluminescent nanites that coursed through her veins. They were her birthright, her burden, and the living embodiment of the Gilded Prophecy. From the moment she could understand words, the prophecy had been her catechism. She was the Suvaran Yodha, the golden warrior, destined to avenge the betrayal that had scarred the Vishwakarma legacy and brought shame upon their name. The enemy, the Devdas family, was painted as a shadowy cabal, their malice a poison that had seeped into the very fabric of Indus. Her combat instincts were not learned, they were coded into her very DNA, a latent fire waiting for a spark. Every meditation, every physical drill, every moment of her existence was dedicated to this singular purpose, the final, bloody confrontation that would fulfill her destiny. Her grandmother, Matriarch Vishwakarma, a woman with eyes as sharp as cut glass and will forged in boardroom battles, was the high priestess of this cult of vengeance. They took what was ours, Anika, she would whisper, her voice a low rumble. Our dharma, our sacred duty, is to reclaim it. Your very blood remembers their treachery. But a growing dissonance hummed beneath the surface of Anika's perfect life. She was a weapon, and weapons are meant for one thing: destruction. The more she trained, the more she felt the cold emptiness of her purpose. She saw the Devdas from a distance, not as the monstrous villains of the prophecy, but as people. She saw them in the news feeds, at charity galas, their faces animated by smiles and sorrow, not the malevolent sneer she had been taught to expect. Their innovations, their bioprinted medicines, and their agricultural tech were as vital to the city as her family's cybernetic implants and combat augments. The dissonance became a chasm. Her closest confidant, an AI named Niantri, programmed to oversee her training and biofunctions, began to register these emotional shifts. Niantri was designed to be her guide, her mentor, her shadow, yet its algorithms were based on the very propaganda Anika was starting to question. One evening, while Anika practiced a complex Kalri Payattu Kata, a martial art revitalized with her enhanced genetics, Niantri paused the holographic training dummy. Your cortisol levels are elevated, Anika. Your heart rate is not stabilizing. You are experiencing emotional duress inconsistent with combat readiness. Please identify the source. Anika sighed, the golden shimmer on her skin dimming slightly. It's nothing, Niantri. My purpose is to optimize your performance. This emotional state is a liability. Your internal data does not align with the historical directives for the Suvaran Yodha. Then maybe the directives are flawed, Anika muttered, more to herself than to the AI. The final phase of her training began. Matriarch Vishwakarma ordered Anika to undergo the memory imprint, a procedure that would directly upload the original Vishwakarma archives into her neural network. So you may feel the betrayal as if it were your own, her grandmother said, her words a promise and a threat. The process was a waking nightmare. As the data flooded her consciousness, Anika wasn't just observing history, she was living it. She saw the world through the eyes of her great-great-great-grandfather, the first CEO of Vishwakarma Biocorp. She saw the sprawling labs, the brilliant minds, the initial fervor of innovation. The betrayal was presented as a pivotal moment. The Devdas had stolen their patent for a bioweapon, the Rudra's kiss, a viral agent that could cripple an enemy's infrastructure and genetic lineage. It was this act, she was told, that birthed the prophecy. But deep within the terabits of data, hidden behind layers of corporate encryption and historical redaction, Anika found a glitch. A single, corrupted file that her genetic programming, ironically, was hardwired to ignore. But her growing doubt, A nascent rebellion compelled her to access it. With a whispered command, she cracked the encryption, and a different story unfolded. The prophecy was not ancient, nor was it mystical. It was a fabricated narrative, a carefully crafted piece of corporate propaganda. A long-dead CEO, driven by a simple patent dispute, had commissioned a team of corporate mythmakers and bioengineers. They had weaponized the new technology, synthetic prophecies, to justify a hostile corporate takeover. The original Vishwakarma family had not been spiritual leaders, but ruthless industrialists. The betrayal wasn't a grand, mythical treachery. It was a simple business rivalry over the Rudra's kiss patent. The weapon, far from being stolen, had been a joint venture between the two families. The Devdas, horrified by its potential for mass destruction, had chosen to seize its development. It was this act of ethical defiance, not theft, that had been twisted into the family lore. They had not stolen the weapon, they had chosen not to build it. Anika's entire life, her very being, was a lie built on a foundation of corporate greed. The revelation hit her with the force of a physical blow. The golden nanites in her skin felt less like a blessing and more like a gilded prison. Her destiny wasn't to be a vengeful hero. She was a pawn, a living, breathing piece of intellectual property designed to serve a dead man's grudge. Her body, a temple of ancient vengeance, was nothing but a high-tech corporate asset. She found herself in a quiet, forgotten archive room, a place of dust and holographic scrolls that held the real history of the city. The contrast between this silence and the pulsating neon outside was stark. A single, aged data scroll lay on a table. It was a fragment of the Mahabharata, a story of a great war and the futility of vengeance. The irony was a bitter taste in her mouth. She was living a modern-day Kurukshetra, but with bioweapons and corporate lies instead of celestial bows and arrows. Anika's rebellion was born not in fire, but in stillness. She knew she could not fight the Devdas. To do so would be to become the very thing she was designed to be, a corporate-sanctioned murderer. Her true heroic act would be to not fight at all. Her grandmother, sensing her wavering resolve, became a formidable presence. The final ritual, Anika, matriarch Vishwakarma said, her voice like grinding metal. The convergence point is set. The Devdas heir awaits. What if the prophecy is wrong? Anika asked, her voice quiet but firm. Her grandmother's laughter was a brittle, dry sound. Wrong? The prophecy is our truth, our blood. It is what makes us Vishwakarma. You are a part of a greater design. Anika's journey to the convergence point, a desolate, overgrown overpass where the two families were to finally meet, was not a march to war but a pilgrimage of truth. The Devdas heir, a young man named Rohan, stood waiting, his face a mask of weary resignation. He, too, was a product of a prophecy, one that told him he was the keeper of his family's honor, destined to face the Gilded One and die with dignity. The two of them, the living symbols of two manufactured legends, faced each other under the indifferent glow of the city's neon lights. Anika Vishwakarma, Rohan said, his voice devoid of hostility. I am Rohan Devdas. Let's end this. Anika shook her head. The nanites in her veins thrummed, urging her to action, but her mind was clear. No, she said, her voice echoing in the quiet. We won't. Rohan's brow furrowed. What do you mean? The prophecy is a lie, she said, and the words, once spoken, felt like a great weight lifted from her shoulders. Your family didn't betray ours. They didn't steal the Rudra's kiss bioweapon. They stopped its development because they believed it was too dangerous. My great-great-great-grandfather fabricated this entire narrative to justify a hostile takeover. She held out her hand, a simple, non-threatening gesture. I have the archives. The original, unredacted files. I can prove it. Her grandmother's face, contorted with rage and shock, appeared on a holographic comm screen. Anika, what are you doing? This is insubordination. This is a betrayal of everything we are. It is a betrayal of a lie, Anika countered, her voice now filled with a quiet power. You didn't raise me to be a warrior, Nani. You raised me to be a weapon. And a weapon cannot choose not to fight. I am choosing. Anika pulled a small, iridescent data crystal from her pocket. It contained the corrupted files, the true history of the Vishwakarma and Devdas families. We can end this, she said to Rohan. Not with a battle, but with transparency. We can expose the lie together. Rohan looked at her, at the raw, vulnerable truth in her eyes. He saw not a gilded warrior but a human being, trapped just as he was. A fragile, hopeful smile broke through his weary facade. He reached out and took the data crystal. We have to do this quickly, he said, before they can scrub the data from the network. The climax wasn't a fight, but a race against time. Anika, with Rohan's help, used a shared neural link, a piece of forbidden technology designed for communication between the two families, to upload the unredacted archives to the public network. The data stream was a tsunami, washing away a century of corporate-sanctioned lies. The world of Indus, which had always seen the Vishwakarma as noble avengers and the Devdas as shadowy villains, watched in stunned silence as the truth unfolded. They saw the patent dispute, the bioweapon, the corporate propaganda machine that had manipulated generations. The city, once a canvas for the war between two families, was now a mirror reflecting its own gullibility. The Vishwakarma's stock plummeted. Matriarch Vishwakarma was disgraced, her prophecy-driven empire revealed as a house of cards. The Devdas, once seen as villains, were now seen as ethical pioneers. Anika's life was forever changed. She was no longer the Gilded One. She was just Anika. The nanites in her skin still shimmered, but now they felt less like a cage and more like a reminder of the prison she had escaped. She had reclaimed her identity not by fulfilling a destiny, but by rejecting it. Her body was still a masterpiece of bioengineering, but her spirit, her will, was her own. The final scene shows Anika and Rohan, not as enemies, but as partners. They stood together on the overpass, the once designated battlefield, now just a place of quiet reflection. The neon-drenched city below them seemed to pulse with a new, hesitant energy. They had not saved the world with a bioweapon or a final battle. They had saved it with a simple, ancient act, the telling of a truth. They were the architects of a new kind of peace, a peace built on the rubble of a corporate lie. Their future was not predetermined. It was a blank page, waiting for them to write their own story. The cycle of vengeance, passed down from generation to generation, had finally, mercifully, been broken not with a sword, but with a confession.